I wasn't sure what I was looking for that day. I guess I wasn't looking for anything, but when I spotted it, I knew something was wrong. It wasn't a big thing, at least, not at first, but it was enough to put me on edge. I've been a mechanic for over 20 years. I'm not one to miss the little details, whether it's a misfiring engine or the worn-down brake pads of a car. The small stuff adds up, and that's what keeps a car running right. You can't just focus on the obvious problems and call it good. If you want something to last, you've got to pay attention to every damn detail. I was cleaning out the back seat of my wife's car, Darla's, when I saw it. Sitting innocently enough in the middle console, next to her cup holder. A small piece of jewelry. An engagement bracelet. I hadn't seen it in months. Not since she'd first gotten it. The one I had given her when I proposed all those years ago. I picked it up, my fingers brushing against the cold metal. She always wore it. Always. Even when she went out to the garden to weed the flowers. Even when she was scrubbing the kitchen floor. It had never come off her wrist. Not for beach vacations. Not for renovations at the house. Not even when she went to bed. It wasn't lost. That much was clear. It was just there. Out of place. The bracelet was positioned neatly, too neatly, on the console. Like it had been placed there intentionally, not dropped or forgotten. I felt a tightening in my chest as I stared at it, trying to make sense of it. Maybe I was overthinking it, but it felt wrong. All the little details I'd come to rely on for so many years. The way she always wore that bracelet, how she had never taken it off even during the most inconvenient times, suddenly felt like they didn't belong. This wasn't right. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew something had shifted. I had always prided myself on noticing the small stuff. It was what made me good at my job, but now, it felt like it was betraying me. I closed my fist around the bracelet and stared out the window. The car was parked in the driveway, the evening sunlight stretching across the yard. I took a breath, trying to calm the racing thoughts. Logan, you're overthinking this, I told myself. I set the bracelet back in its spot and shut the car door. Darla wouldn't be home for another hour. I could wait. I didn't know how, but I knew I had to wait. There was something I needed to hear from her. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe she had just left it there by accident, but I wasn't convinced. And that nagging feeling, the one that had started small, began to grow. I was about to head back inside when my eyes caught the reflection of the setting sun against the house. The same house we'd built together, the one I'd put my blood, sweat, and tears into. Something was off. Something was shifting, and I wasn't going to let it pass by unnoticed. I was going to wait. Darla came home like nothing had changed. The sound of the door opening, her voice calling out a quick, "I'm home." All of it felt so routine, like she hadn't just dropped a bomb on my world earlier that day with her engagement bracelet sitting all alone in her car's center console. She walked in, smiling, chatting about her day as if she didn't have a care in the world. "Oh, it's been such a hectic day. You won't believe the amount of paperwork that piled up, but I got it all done. I'm starving too. What do you think about spaghetti tonight?" Her cheerfulness was so out of place that I had to bite my tongue to keep from saying anything too harsh too quickly. Instead, I decided to test the waters. I needed to know if she'd come clean. I couldn't jump the gun without hearing it from her first. "Hey, I was cleaning out the car earlier," I said, my voice casual. "Found the bracelet. The engagement one, you know. Haven't seen it in a while." Her smile faltered for just a second. It was brief, a tiny moment, but I caught it. Then, just as quickly, she recovered and shot me one of those warm, almost too perfect smiles that had always made me feel at ease. "Oh yeah? I've been meaning to tell you about that. I took it off the other day when I was doing a hand scrub at the spa." She walked into the kitchen, her voice still light and breezy. "You know, the one on 5th Street. The name of the spa hit me like a dart. My eyebrows furrowed for a moment before I caught myself. 5th Street, I asked, the words sounding a little more clipped than I'd intended. "I've driven by that place 100 times, and I've never seen a spa there." "You sure?" Darla paused. Her back was to me, but I could hear the slight hesitation in her next words. "Oh, well, it's a new location. They just opened up this month. You know how these things are, right? Anyway, I just didn't want to wear the bracelet while my hands were covered in all those lotions and scrubs. You know how it is." I wanted to push, to press her further, to keep asking about the name of the spa, about the timing of it all, but something told me it wasn't the right moment. I could see the wall she was building around herself. The way her eyes darted a little too quickly when she spoke, the way her smile seemed forced, just a little too wide. It was all there, a map of her trying to make her answers sound believable. I could tell she was trying to convince me. And maybe, just maybe, she was convincing herself too. I nodded slowly, letting it sit. I'm okay. I didn't want to look too eager, but I couldn't hide the skepticism creeping up inside me. I had been with her long enough to know when something didn't add up, and this didn't add up. She continued preparing dinner, humming to herself, but I was lost in the web of little things that didn't make sense. Her deflection was polished, but it was still a lie. And for the first time in 22 years, the person who knew me best, my wife, was lying to me, even if she didn't know I knew it yet. I let her keep talking, pretending to buy into her story, but in my gut, I knew this was only the beginning. Something was happening, and I was going to find out exactly what it was. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Not just the bracelet or the little lies Darla had been feeding me, but the entire weight of it. The way she had tried so hard to cover up the one thing I'd seen with my own eyes. The way she kept steering the conversation away from it. I needed more than just suspicions. I needed proof. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Victor. He was an old friend from the days before I met Darla. Back when I used to do more than just fix cars. Back when we used to drink together and talk shop. Mechanics, life, the weird things that only someone with his kind of mind would get. He'd gotten into surveillance tech after a few years of bouncing around odd jobs, and last I heard, he was working for insurance companies, tracking down fraud. Victor, I said when he picked up, I need your help with something. There was a pause on the other end, and I could hear the familiar clicking of keys, probably a keyboard or a mouse. Logan, is everything all right? You don't usually call unless it's something serious. It's serious. I need to track someone. Don't ask why. Just, can you help me? Another long pause. Man, you sure you want to go down this road? You know how this stuff goes. It's not just a game. I need it. Just a small tracker, something I can use without anyone noticing. I won't make a habit of it. Victor sighed. All right. Just don't get in too deep. I'll set you up with something simple. It'll give you real-time data. No need for anything complicated. Just remember, you're not in the clear once you start. He gave me the details, and I headed over to his place the next morning to pick it up. The tracker was small, sleek, no bigger than a matchbox, with a magnet for easy attachment to any vehicle. The telemetry data came through an app I'd install on my phone. I was nervous, but the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I needed to know. I waited until Darla left for her office the next morning, as she always did. It was early, and the sun was barely up. I didn't follow her out the door. I didn't make it obvious. As soon as her car was out of the driveway, I grabbed the tracker from my jacket and slipped into the garage. The magnet clicked as I attached it under her car, just beneath the chassis where no one would see it. I made sure it was secure before stepping back and watching as the car pulled away down the street. I didn't have to worry about Darla knowing. She'd never think to check under the car. It was the perfect hiding spot. I climbed back into my own truck and started the engine, heading back to my workshop. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. I couldn't focus on anything but the tracker, waiting for the notification that would tell me where she was. It didn't take long. The app buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at it, and there it was, a map of Darla's car moving steadily, not towards her office, not towards the local accounting firm like she'd said, but instead, towards the marina on the outskirts of town. I watched it for a moment, uncertain. Maybe she was just making a stop, grabbing lunch, or something. But no, something about it didn't feel right. Darla didn't go to the marina. It wasn't in her routine. And she had told me she was working late on a project at the office, not heading to a marina. I zoomed in on the map. The tracker kept moving, heading straight toward the water. My heart started to beat harder. There was no mistake now. I was no longer just suspicious. I was certain. I kept my eyes on the screen, watching Darla's car as it pulled into a parking lot near the docks. The real-time map showed it stopping near a private boat slip. I couldn't believe it. I'd been married to this woman for 22 years, and I had never once seen a slip like that in her schedule. She had never mentioned a marina, let alone a boat. My mind raced. I knew I had to see this with my own eyes. I grabbed my jacket and left the shop. I wasn't sure what I'd find, but I had to see it. I needed to confirm this. I drove down to the marina, keeping a safe distance. I didn't know what I was expecting. Maybe just a stop for a drink, maybe a business meeting. But I knew deep down I wasn't fooling myself. This wasn't business. As I parked my truck a few blocks away, I could see Darla walking toward the dock. But she wasn't alone. There was a man with her, tall, well-dressed, wearing a suit. She was smiling, her head tilted back in laughter. I felt like I was suffocating as I watched them. They walked closer to the boat, hand in hand, and then he leaned in, kissing her. The kiss wasn't quick or casual. It was long, intimate, as if they'd been doing it for a while. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles turned white. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing, but there was no denying it now. My wife, Darla, was cheating on me. I pulled my phone out, my hands shaking as I snapped a few photos from a distance. Each one burned into my mind. The way they were together, the way they didn't even seem to care who saw them. When they boarded the boat together, I felt like I couldn't breathe. The betrayal hit me physically, like a punch to the gut. I felt sick, dizzy, but I had to focus. I had to get the evidence. They were out of my sight soon enough, and I sat there in the truck for what felt like an eternity, my hands still trembling. This wasn't how I'd planned to spend the day. This wasn't how I'd planned to spend the next few years. But I had to face it. She wasn't the woman I thought she was anymore. And now, I had the proof. When Darla came home that evening, she was her usual self, smiling, talking about how the meeting ran long. She had no idea I knew what she'd been up to. But I was done pretending, and I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I filed the moment away, knowing this was only the beginning. The first confirmed lie. The first step towards something I never thought I'd have to face. The marina was quieter than I expected when I arrived, the soft sounds of water slapping against the docks mixing with the occasional hum of a boat's engine. I kept a good distance, parking far enough away that I wouldn't be seen, but close enough to monitor the tracker in real time. My heart pounded as I stared at my phone, watching Darla's car come to a stop in the marina parking lot. The little map pinpointed her exact location, and I knew I wasn't imagining this. This wasn't a mistake. I felt like I was on autopilot as I slid out of the truck, locking the door quietly and walking along the edge of the marina. I kept my eyes on the screen, checking every couple of seconds to make sure I was headed in the right direction. I couldn't explain it, but everything in me screamed that I needed to see this. I needed to know for sure what I was dealing with. As I turned the corner, I saw her, Darla, but she wasn't alone. She was walking hand in hand with a man I didn't recognize. They were laughing, talking like there wasn't a care in the world, like the life we'd built for the past 22 years didn't matter. My chest tightened with every step I took closer. The man was tall, well-dressed, easily the kind of guy Darla seemed to gravitate toward. Someone polished, someone who didn't smell like motor oil or wear work boots. They stopped near the dock, just out of sight, and I watched as they leaned in toward each other, their lips meeting in a long, unhurried kiss. I couldn't breathe. The image felt like it was searing itself into my brain. My hands were shaking as I pulled my phone from my pocket, quickly snapping a few photos from a safe distance. The betrayal wasn't just emotional anymore. It was physical, like I could feel it settling into my bones. My body was betraying me, too. As I stood frozen, watching this scene unfold, a part of me wanted to shout at them, to run over there and demand answers, but I knew I couldn't. Not yet. I stayed still, focusing on the camera, capturing as much evidence as I could. A part of me tried to tell myself it didn't matter, that this was just one moment, but everything in me screamed otherwise. The truth was obvious, and as much as I didn't want to face it, it was staring me right in the face. She was with him, not just today, but likely for a while. When they boarded the boat, I snapped a few more photos, one of them laughing as the man helped her onto the deck. He'd thrown his arm around her waist, his hand lingering too long. That was enough for me, the proof I needed. I lingered for a few moments, just staring at the boat as it left the dock. My heart was pounding so hard I could almost hear it over the gentle sound of the water. I knew this would be the moment I'd look back on, the moment that changed everything. I wasn't just facing her infidelity. I was facing the reality of it. My marriage, the life I had built with Darla, was nothing like I thought. I didn't want to believe it, but I had seen enough. By the time Darla returned home later that evening, the house felt different. It was like there was an invisible barrier between us now, a crack in the foundation that hadn't been there before. She walked in, talking about how the meeting ran late, how she had just gotten caught up with a client. The words were so rehearsed, so familiar, and yet I couldn't help but notice how they fell flat this time. "Late meeting, huh?" I asked, my voice even, though I could feel the edge creeping in. "You go anywhere else after?" Darla froze for a moment, And then that perfect smile returned, like a mask slipping into place. Nope, just the meeting. You know how it goes. I leaned back in my chair, pretending like I wasn't hanging on every word. Right? No chance you went anywhere near the marina? Her eyes darted to the side for a second. It was quick, too quick, but I caught it. A shift in her expression that didn't match the calmness of her voice. The marina? No. Why would I go there? I told you I was at work. I didn't break her gaze. Funny, because I drove by there earlier today. Saw your car. Her smile faltered, just for an instant. It was like the life drained from her for that split second. Then she laughed, nervously. Oh, Logan, you're really getting paranoid. I don't know what you saw, but I wasn't there. Honestly, you're making a big deal out of nothing. She didn't meet my eyes as she spoke. She busied herself with taking off her shoes, her fingers fumbling with the straps as if she had to focus on something, anything other than looking at me. I stood up, walking over to her, my voice quiet. Darla, we've been married for 22 years. I know when you're lying to me. I'm not stupid. She froze, her back stiffening. I'm not lying. Then why don't you tell me who that guy was today? I asked, my voice low, steady. The one you kissed, the one you boarded a boat with. Her face drained of color. The lie she was clinging to unraveled right in front of me. And for a moment, I just watched her, waiting, almost daring her to break down and admit it. But she didn't. She couldn't. Instead, she turned away, busying herself with the counter again, her hands shaking as she pretended to look for something. I don't know what you're talking about. But I did. And now, I had the proof. I could feel the weight of it. The photos, the tracker, the truth staring me down. I'm not asking for explanations anymore, I said, turning away. I've seen enough. The silence hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I didn't know how we were going to move forward from this, but I knew I wasn't going to stand by and pretend everything was fine. Not anymore. Not after what I had just witnessed. I took a deep breath, my hand gripping the doorframe. I'll be in the garage if you need me. And as I walked out of the room, the weight of everything that had just unfolded settled on my shoulders. I wasn't ready to confront her yet, but I couldn't stay in the same house with the lies anymore. Something was broken, and I knew, deep down, it couldn't be fixed. Not like this. I didn't know what I was expecting when I walked into Brianna Heller's office, but it wasn't the calm, no-nonsense demeanor she exuded. Her office was sleek and minimalistic, clean lines and subdued colors, nothing out of place. It reminded me of the kind of person I needed on my side right now, precise, organized, and absolutely businesslike. I sat down across from her, the weight of the file in my hands like a weight on my chest. Inside it were photos of Darla and her lover at the marina, GPS logs, and timestamp location data. Financial inconsistencies. The truth that was too hard to ignore. You've come to the right place, Brianna said, looking at the papers I handed her without flinching. She didn't need to know how much this hurt. She didn't need to know the years of memories I was now questioning. She just needed the facts, and that's exactly what I was here to give her. I don't know how to start, I admitted, leaning back in my chair. My mind was still processing the last few days, the last few weeks, hell, the last few months. But I couldn't afford to get emotional now. That wasn't the point. You start by telling me what you want, Brianna replied, her pen poised in her hand. I want to protect myself, I said, the words coming out easier than I thought. I want to make sure my business, my future, my retirement, none of that is on the line because of her lies. I want to know my rights. I want to be smart about this. I don't want to make a mistake. Brianna nodded, flipping through the stack of papers I handed her, scanning each one with quick, practiced eyes. You've got everything you need to move forward. You've gathered evidence, which is smart. And you're not making decisions based on emotion. That's exactly what we'll do, build a case that's airtight. She looked up from the papers, her gaze sharp. You said you want to protect your business. We'll start there. That's going to be key. Your business account, your personal tools, anything that could be used against you later, has to be separated immediately. The more distance we create between you and her, the better. I listened intently, taking it all in. The divorce wasn't just about emotions anymore. It was about survival. I had worked too hard for too many years to let it all slip through my fingers now. You should open a new business account. Start moving your personal assets to storage. I can help you with the legal side of things, but you need to make sure you're one step ahead, Brianna continued, her voice smooth, confident. You've got to prepare for the long haul. Stay calm. Keep things normal between the two of you. No surprises until we file." She paused, looking at me closely, almost as if she was reading something beyond the papers. "And Logan, be prepared. Every lie she tells you, every fabrication she tries to sell, it's only going to make you more certain of your decision. I know this isn't easy, but I promise you, this is the way to go. The moment you show weakness, it's all over." Weakness? I didn't feel weak. I felt like I was walking in a fog, unsure of how the hell I was supposed to get through the next few days, let alone the next few months. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her take everything I'd built. "I'll do it," I said, meeting her eyes. "I'll do whatever it takes." Brianna gave a small nod of approval, then slid a stack of paperwork across the desk toward me. "These are the next steps. Sign these, and we'll get started on securing your assets. You've made the first move. Now we finish it." I signed the papers, the sharp sound of the pen against the paper making it all feel more real. This was happening. No turning back now. "Don't worry about her for now," Brianna said, her tone softening just a fraction. "Focus on yourself, your business, your future. That's what matters." As I left her office, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The fog wasn't completely gone, but it had lifted just enough for me to see the road ahead. This wasn't the life I had planned, but it was the one I was going to live. And Darla? She would have to deal with the consequences of her choices. I wasn't her safety net anymore. I wasn't anyone's backup plan. I was my own person now, and I was going to make sure I stayed that way. The house felt eerily quiet that Monday morning. I watched Darla grab her suitcase, ready to leave for yet another work trip she told me about. I didn't ask for the details, didn't care anymore. After everything I had seen and everything I knew, there was no more room for doubt. She had been caught in the lies for so long, and now it was my turn to take control. I didn't need to confront her again. I didn't need to hear another fabricated excuse. I just needed to act. I waited for her car to pull out of the driveway, like I always did when she left for these trips. The engine revved, and the tires crunched over gravel as she drove away, heading down the road. The same road she'd driven on countless times before, but this time, I knew I wasn't going to wait for her return. I wasn't going to give her the chance to come home and play the part of the perfect wife. 30 minutes. I set the timer in my head and leaned back in my chair, my fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. 30 minutes to let her think I was still in the dark, still oblivious to what had been happening behind my back. I moved quickly through the house, gathering the things I needed for my exit. The divorce papers, signed, dated, and ready to go. A photo of her and her lover at the marina, the one I'd taken with shaky hands. And my wedding ring, still warm from where it had rested on my finger for years. I set everything neatly on her pillow, one last time in the room we'd shared. The last time I'd ever share a bed with her. My breath caught in my throat, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. I could feel the finality of it all. With everything in place, I did what I needed to do. I walked through the house, locking every door behind me, turning off the lights, securing the place as if I were leaving for good. The sound of the locks clicking behind me felt final, like the end of a chapter one never wanted to write. I grabbed the keys to my truck and walked out the front door for the last time. There was no turning back now. The drive to the apartment was a blur. I didn't need the distraction of a music playlist or the hum of the radio. I just needed the road, the sound of the tires, and the way my heart pounded as I focused on the next part of this painful process. The plan was simple, silent, almost clinical. It wasn't about revenge or anger. It was about protecting what was mine, protecting myself. I parked in front of the apartment, the small one I'd rented above a classic car restoration shop. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and that was all I needed. The shop, my work, those were the things I could still count on. I walked inside, the familiar smell of oil and metal surrounding me. It felt comforting in a way. I was free, even if I wasn't sure what the future held. I grabbed a box, packed up the few personal things I'd brought with me, and set it down on the table. It wasn't about running away. It was about cutting ties, about taking control of the one thing I could. I destroyed my SIM card and tossed it into the trash. My old phone, my old life, gone, and with it, any means of contact with Darla. As I cracked open a cold beer that night, I sat back on the couch, the hum of the shop downstairs filling the silence. I wasn't angry, not anymore. There was a strange calm in me, one I hadn't felt in years. My old life, my marriage, the years I spent trying to make it work, was over. And in that moment, I realized something. The hardest thing I had ever done was also the most necessary. I wasn't walking away out of spite. I wasn't running from a fight. I was walking away because I deserved better. I deserved a life built on truth, not lies. The beer was cold. The night was quiet. And for the first time in a long while, I could breathe without the weight of Darla's deceit pressing down on me. It didn't take long for Darla to notice that I was gone. I'd left no trace, no sign that I'd ever intended to come back. Just the divorce papers, the photo of her with the man she'd chosen over me, and my wedding ring. Things that told the story without a word from me. But it still felt like a punch in the gut when I saw the missed calls piling up on my new phone, all from her. The first one came about an hour after I'd left the house. I didn't answer. I couldn't answer. Every call felt like another thread tying me back to the life I was leaving behind, and I wasn't ready to pull myself back into that mess. I let the phone buzz and vibrate on the counter of my new apartment, echoing in the quiet room as I unpacked a few more boxes. I had to focus on the future, not the past. By the time the 10th call came in, I knew it was pointless to ignore it. The noise was deafening, a reminder of everything I was walking away from. I stared at the screen and hit answer with a deep sigh. Logan. Darla's voice came through, desperate, frantic. Where are you? I didn't speak at first, just letting the silence hang. She knew where I was. She just wasn't ready to accept it. I'm gone, Darla, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my mind. I'm done. Done? What do you mean done? You can't just leave. What the hell is going on? I could hear the panic in her voice. But there was something else there, too. Something that sounded like anger, like she felt betrayed. It should have made me feel something, guilt, maybe, but it didn't. You don't get to say that anymore. I replied, my voice colder now. Not after everything. There was a long pause, and when she spoke again, her tone had shifted. You think this is some kind of game, Logan? You're making a mistake. I don't know what's gotten into you, but you can't just leave like this. You can't. We're married. I shook my head, though she couldn't see it. I'm not playing any games. I've had enough of the lies. The ones you've told me, the ones you've been living with. I'm done, Darla. You've made your choices, and now I'm making mine. I didn't, she cut herself off, but I could already hear the excuses piling up. Logan, please, this is ridiculous. We've been through so much together, don't you? Don't. I cut her off, finally allowing some emotion to creep into my voice. Don't pretend this is anything other than what it is. I've seen the truth, and I'm not going to sit around while you keep lying to me. She didn't respond for a long time. I didn't know if she was crying or if she was just trying to figure out how to fix everything. But I wasn't interested in hearing it anymore. Finally, she broke the silence. I'll fix this, Logan. Just come home. We'll talk about it. I'll make everything right. Just come back. I'm not coming back, I said quietly. The finality of the words hit me like a brick, but I didn't flinch. I'll get a lawyer involved. I'll deal with everything. But I'm done. The call ended with a long silence on the other end of the line. I didn't look at my phone after that. I didn't need to. I could already imagine the frantic calls and the voice messages begging me to come back. But I wasn't going back. A few hours later, I got a call from Victor. He didn't need to ask if everything was okay. He knew. She's panicking, man, he said, his voice grim. She tried to hire me to track you down. She doesn't know where you are, but she's desperate. Let her be desperate, I said, the words coming out more sharply than I meant. I'm done, Victor. I'm done with the lies. Done with her pretending I'm not enough. I get it. But be careful, Logan. She's going to get worse before she gets better. I rubbed my temples. I don't care anymore. She's the one who made her choices. All right. Just keep your guard up. Let me know if you need anything. I hung up the phone and sat back, staring out the window at the quiet streets outside. The world was moving on, and so was I. Just when I thought the worst was behind me, my phone buzzed again. I stared at the screen. It was Rachel. I hadn't expected her to call. Not this soon, not after everything. But when I saw her name, something inside me softened. Dad? She asked, her voice hesitant. Where are you? Mom's, she's calling everyone. She's freaking out. What's going on? What's happening? I took a deep breath before speaking, my voice steady but carrying the weight of everything I had just done. I'm not coming back, Rachel. You need to know the truth. Dad, I don't understand, she said quietly. What truth? What's going on? Why didn't you tell me first? I'll explain everything when I see you. Meet me at the diner, okay? I need to show you something. The next morning, I sat at the diner, waiting for Rachel to arrive. My hands shook slightly as I sipped my coffee, my mind going back over everything. Over the years with Darla, the lies, the betrayal, and now, the aftermath. Rachel walked in, her eyes scanning the room before they locked on me. She looked different. Older, somehow, though she hadn't changed that much. I stood up, my chest tight as I gestured for her to sit. She did, but she didn't speak right away. She just stared at me, waiting for me to explain. I don't know how to say this, Rachel, I said, my voice softer now. But you need to know what's been going on. What your mom's been doing. I slid the folder I'd kept with me across the table toward her. She glanced at it, hesitated, then opened it. The photos, the GPS logs, the timesheets, they were all there. Everything that had been building up in my head for weeks now laid out in front of her. Her eyes moved from one photo to the next, and I could see the shock sinking in. Her face went pale as she turned the pages, the disbelief in her eyes turning into something I couldn't quite read. Dad, her voice trembled. I had no idea. I know. I didn't want to believe it either, I said quietly. But it's the truth, and you need to know it. This isn't just about me anymore. This is about you too. About your mom's choices. She didn't respond at first, just sat there, staring at the evidence before her. Finally, she looked up at me. Thank you for telling me the truth, she said softly, her voice breaking. I need time to think about this. I understand, I said, nodding. Take all the time you need. But just know that I'm here for you. And I'm not the one who's hiding anything anymore. Rachel nodded slowly, and we sat there in silence for a while. It wasn't comfortable, but it felt like a necessary step. Call me when you're ready, I said as I stood up, slipping the jacket over my shoulders. Rachel just nodded, watching me leave, her mind clearly somewhere else. But I knew she was processing it all. In her own time, in her own way, she would come to terms with what I had just shown her. The fallout from my departure had begun, and I didn't know what would come of it. But I was finally doing things on my terms. And for the first time in a long time, I was okay with that. 6 months had passed since I walked out on Darla, and I could already feel the change. The weight of betrayal still hung over me like a fog, but I was starting to see clearer now. My business was thriving, and for the first time in years, I wasn't carrying the weight of someone else's lies. My shop had grown with a new hire, Jason, who had a knack for vintage restorations that I hadn't seen in a while. The contracts were coming in, the work was steady, and the hours weren't dragging me down the way they used to. It felt good. It felt like I was doing something right. But the best part? The part that felt like I was finally living a life that was mine? Miranda. She ran a food truck that parked just outside my shop, and we had become fast friends. She had that effortless charm. One of those people who made everything look easy, from cooking to talking to anyone who walked by her truck. She was sharp, confident, and she had a way of cutting through the bullshit, which, honestly, was refreshing after everything with Darla. We'd started dating a few months ago. And when I say dating, I mean no games, no pretending. It was simple. We spent time together because we enjoyed it, and there were no expectations. Her no-nonsense attitude had me laughing more than I had in years. And her food? Well, that was the cherry on top. She had this gift of making the simplest dish taste like a 5-star meal. I found myself looking forward to the end of each day, knowing I could head over to her truck, grab some food, and talk about whatever was on our minds. No drama, no lies, just two people enjoying each other's company. It felt real. Rachel still came by the shop from time to time. It had been awkward at first, her trying to balance the guilt she felt toward her mom with the truth I'd shared with her. But she was slowly distancing herself from Darla. She told me, on more than one occasion, that she was disappointed by how long her mom had lied. And I understood that. I had a lot of my own wounds to heal, but watching Rachel process everything was its own kind of pain. It was hard seeing her grapple with the fact that the mother she had always admired could do something so deceitful. But she wasn't angry. Not at me. She was just sad. And I couldn't blame her for that. One afternoon, after I'd finished talking to a client about a new restoration project, I found Rachel sitting on the hood of my truck. She was quiet, staring at the street in front of her. When she noticed me, she straightened up. "You've been busy," she said, her voice a little lighter than usual. "Yeah, business is picking up. Can't complain," I replied, a small smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. "How's everything with you?" She shrugged, a little distant. Good. Things are getting better. It's just, with Mom. She's been acting like nothing happened. I know, I said, moving to sit beside her. I looked at her, trying to read her face. But I need you to know that you don't have to choose between us, Rachel. I know this isn't easy, and I'm not trying to put any pressure on you. But I'm here, no matter what. She looked over at me, eyes soft, and nodded. I know. I'm just still trying to figure it all out. I could see the strain in her eyes, the way she was still holding on to something, her loyalty to her mom, maybe, or just the image she had of her family before everything came crashing down. But I could see the change in her, too. She wasn't the same person she was 6 months ago. We sat in silence for a while, the sound of passing cars and distant voices filling the space between us. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was just understanding. I'm proud of you, Dad, she said finally, breaking the silence. Her voice was quiet but firm. You've been through so much, and I don't think I told you that enough before. I nodded, feeling the lump in my throat tighten. Thanks, kid. It means more than you know. She gave me a small, sad smile, and then stood up, brushing herself off. I'm gonna head out, but I'll be back soon. Maybe I'll swing by the truck for dinner? I heard Miranda's got a new special. I chuckled. You'd better. She's been waiting for you to come by. Rachel smiled, and for the first time in a while, I saw a flicker of the girl I remembered, hopeful, looking forward to something, even if she wasn't quite there yet. As she walked off, I turned back to the shop, a heavy sigh escaping my lips. I had a long road ahead, but I wasn't walking it alone anymore. Miranda was there, Rachel was starting to come around, and I was finally starting to feel like myself again. Capable, respected, and unburdened by the weight of betrayal. My life had changed, and I was finally learning to embrace it. Every decision I made now was mine to make, and I wasn't looking back. The past couldn't hurt me anymore. It had been 2 years since I left. 2 years since I saw Darla's lies for what they were, and I'd spent every day since then building something new for myself. My shop was thriving. I had a steady rhythm to my life, and Miranda was there, a solid presence, someone who didn't bring games or pretenses. She was the kind of person who made everything feel simple. Rachel had asked me to come to her wedding, and though it felt like a strange thing to attend, knowing how much had changed since the day I left, I agreed. She wanted both parents there, but she made it clear she wouldn't pretend that nothing had happened. It was one of the few things I appreciated about her. She understood that family wasn't just about shared holidays and fake smiles. It was about truth. Miranda and I arrived early, and I could already feel the tension, like the air was thick with everything unsaid. Darla was there, of course, sitting near the back of the room, her posture stiff. She was with a man I didn't recognize. Someone quiet, not making a fuss, sitting with her like he belonged there. Her eyes caught mine across the room for a split second, and then quickly darted away. I could feel her watching me as Rachel took her place in front of everyone. Her smile was radiant, and for the first time, I didn't see a version of her trying to hold everything together. This was Rachel's moment, her joy, and, in a strange way, that felt like enough. Miranda's hand squeezed mine, a quiet gesture of reassurance, and I looked down at her, surprised at the calm that washed over me. Let's go home after this, she whispered, her voice soft but firm. We were both quiet for the rest of the ceremony. I watched Rachel, the girl I had raised, the woman I was proud of. She wasn't just my daughter anymore. She was someone who had faced the same truth I had, even though it hurt. She had distanced herself from Darla in her own way, disappointed by the years of deception. But now, she was forging ahead with her life, and I couldn't have been prouder. After the vows, Rachel walked down the aisle, and I stood there, letting the moment fill me. A family photo was being taken, and Rachel, ever the thoughtful one, made sure to include Miranda and me. It wasn't just a picture. It was a statement of unity. The photo snapped, and Rachel posted it to her social media almost immediately. I could see the caption under it. A new chapter begins. #FamilyFirst. I glanced at Darla then, noticing her eyes locked on the screen, watching the family photo unfold on Rachel's page. There was no confrontation, no dramatic scene, but I saw the expression shift on her face, something between longing and regret. Her eyes stayed fixed on the picture of Rachel, Miranda, and me, while her companion shifted awkwardly in his seat, probably wondering what was so captivating. And I knew in that moment, I was free. I was no longer part of her world, not in the way I once was. She could watch, but she could never take away what I'd built since walking out of that house. That family photo, that new chapter, wasn't hers anymore. Miranda leaned closer, her hand finding mine again. She squeezed it, and I turned to her, surprised at how easily it felt to stand there, without all the weight I'd carried for so long. "Let's go home," she said again, and I nodded, finally feeling a sense of peace settle in my chest. I had no need to approach Darla, no need to confront her. We were two different people, leading two different lives now. And as we walked away from the ceremony, I realized that what I had with Miranda wasn't just companionship, it was a new beginning, a second chance at life. I was no longer tethered to the past. What mattered now was the future, my future, and it was one I had built on honesty, clarity, and a new sense of peace. As we stepped outside into the evening light, Miranda's hand still in mine, I felt the calmness that had eluded me for years settle in. The world was quiet, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. We didn't need to say much as we made our way to the car. We just let the moment stretch out, unspoken and understood. The past was behind me, and ahead, there was nothing but possibilities. And for the first time, I was ready to embrace them. The sun was setting over the quiet neighborhood, casting a soft orange glow over everything. The air was cool, the kind of evening where you could sit outside and just breathe. Miranda and I were on the porch, sitting side by side in comfortable silence, both of us watching the colors of the sky shift from gold to pink and finally to a deep, calming blue. She leaned back in her chair, stretching her legs out in front of her. "You did the hard thing," she said quietly, her voice carrying a sense of calm wisdom. "But it gave you everything that matters." I looked down at the keys in my hand, the set of keys to this house, to my life, to everything I'd built after walking away from Darla. I hadn't realized how much I'd been carrying until I let go. "Yeah," I muttered, letting out a deep breath. It wasn't easy, but looking back, I think it was the only choice. Miranda smiled, her hand finding mine, and she squeezed it gently. I looked over at her, seeing the quiet strength in her eyes. She was my support now, not just in small things like dinner plans or taking care of the bills, but in the things that mattered most, the things that built a life from scratch. I never thought I'd be here, sitting in this chair, feeling peaceful after everything that happened. But now, I couldn't imagine anything else. The life I'd fought for with Darla, it had been important, once. But the life I was building now, with Miranda and the shop and a future that felt unburdened by secrets and lies, that was the one I'd chosen. And it felt like the right one. I ran my fingers over the keys in my hand, feeling their weight. It was more than just a set of keys. It was my past, my present, and my future all in one. A home, a life, and a freedom that no one could take from me. "Sometimes I still don't know if I did the right thing," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Leaving everything behind like that. It feels like a lifetime ago, but some days. I wonder if I could have done it differently." Miranda turned her head toward me, her expression soft but firm. "You did what you had to do, Logan. You didn't just leave because you were angry. You left because you weren't going to let yourself be part of someone else's lie anymore. And that took courage. It wasn't just about getting out of a bad situation. It was about finding yourself again." I met her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the reflection of someone who didn't just see me as a man who had been betrayed, but someone who had rebuilt himself from the ground up. It wasn't easy, but it was real, and that was enough. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway brought me back to the present. It was Rachel's car. She'd been visiting regularly, and even though we still had a lot of ground to cover between us, she was coming around. She was processing everything, slowly distancing herself from Darla. It wasn't easy for her, but I had faith that she'd get there. I smiled at Miranda as I stood up. "She's here." Miranda gave me a knowing look, her eyes warm. "I know. I'll let you two talk." I walked down the steps to meet Rachel halfway. She got out of the car, a hesitant smile on her face, though there was a lot more weight behind her eyes now. She had become quieter in the months since the wedding, and I knew it wasn't just about the wedding. It was about everything that had come after, the reality of it. "Hey, kid," I said, my voice steady. "How are you?" Rachel took a deep breath, her shoulders sagging just a little. "I'm okay. Just a lot to process, you know." I nodded, giving her a soft smile. "I get it. Want to sit down? We can talk about it, or we can just hang out. No pressure. She nodded, and we both walked over to the porch. I could tell she was still figuring things out, still adjusting to the fact that I was no longer part of Darla's world. But we were still family. We'd always be family. We sat there together, letting the silence speak for a while. Eventually, Rachel turned to me, her eyes meeting mine with a kind of quiet understanding. You know, I've been thinking a lot about what you said, she started, her voice soft but steady. About Mom, and everything that happened. It's hard to wrap my head around it. But I'm starting to see things more clearly. I'm glad you told me the truth, even if it hurt. I think that's the only way I'm going to be able to move forward. I smiled, a small but genuine smile. You don't have to make any decisions now, Rachel. Just take your time. But know I'm here for you, no matter what. Rachel nodded, her expression softening as she glanced down at her hands. I'm trying to understand, trying to figure out where I fit in all this. But I think I'm getting there. Good, I said, my voice warm. That's all I can ask for. The three of us sat there together, in the fading light of the day, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like everything was finally coming together. I had my peace. I had my family, even if it wasn't the same as it had been. And I had a future ahead of me, one I could walk into without looking over my shoulder. Miranda squeezed my hand again, and I glanced at her. She smiled, that quiet, unspoken understanding passing between us. Let's go inside, I said, feeling a sense of calm I hadn't known I was capable of before. We've got a good thing going here. And as I looked down at the keys in my hand once more, I knew that everything I needed, everything that mattered, was right there in front of me. A life that no one could take away. A life that was mine to live.